On February 17th, former President Barack Obama said this.
Are aliens real?
They're real, but I haven't seen them, and they're not being kept in, what is it?
Area 51?
Area 51. There's no underground facility unless there's this enormous conspiracy and they hid it from the President of the United States.
And then shortly after, President Donald Trump said this.
Something that got a lot of attention this week. Barack Obama said that aliens are real. Have you seen any evidence of non-human visitors to Earth?
Well, he gave classified information. He's not supposed to be doing that. You know?
So aliens are real.
Well, I don't know if they're real or not. I can tell you he gave classified information. He's not supposed to be doing that. He made a big mistake. He took it out of classified information. No, I don't have an opinion on it. I never talk about it. A lot of people do. A lot of people believe it. Do you believe it, Peter?
Well, the president can declassify anything that he wants to, so
Well,
if you
maybe I'll
want to
get
make
him out
an
of trouble.
announcement.
I may get him out of trouble by declassifying.
We know illegal aliens are real.
Yeah, illegal. Only illegals.
And then later posted on his Truth Social, based on the tremendous interest shown, I will be directing the Secretary of War and other relevant departments and agencies to begin the process of identifying and releasing government files related to alien and extraterrestrial life, unidentified aerial phenomenon, and unidentified flying objects, and any and all other information connected to these highly complex but extremely interesting and important matters. God bless America. It's almost like it's a distraction to keep people's attention off of a certain list of certain files, certain things that have come out recently that nobody in the government wants to talk about. It's a story that feels like it was ripped from a Hollywood script, a simmering feud between two American presidents that's culminated into a threat so profound it could rewrite human history. But it's not a movie, it's just the state of the world now. But that's the topic for another day. On one side, you have one president making a casual yet earth-shattering admission about extraterrestrial life, but saying he's seen no proof. On the other hand, you've got the president who responds not with denial, but with a promise to declassify all the information and saying that, oh, well, Obama gave away classified information. He shouldn't have done that. And you know, Obama even said, oh, I haven't seen aliens. There's nothing in Area 51 unless there's some conspiracy to keep the president from knowing. But it's not like the government would ever want a conspiracy on us. We can trust the government. They are here to help us. They are our friends. And as of today, February 20th, we are standing on the precipice of what could be one of the single greatest revelations of our lifetime, just after another shocking revelation that we already knew was true. This isn't about strange lights in the sky anymore. This is about a political battle that has inadvertently unlocked the door to decades of secrets, a door that has been sealed shut by the clandestine government programs, fierce denials, and terrifying threats against those who dare to speak out. What happens when the most powerful office on Earth becomes the epicenter of the UFO debate? What secrets buried for nearly a century are now at risk of being exposed? And we're about to break down what just happened, what it truly means, and what could be inside the files that President Trump has now vowed to open. This goes deeper than you can possibly imagine, from the deserts of New Mexico to the halls of Congress, and to the very edge of our understanding of reality itself. And now, I don't have high hopes for this declassified information. I think it's just going to be a regurgitation of the files that were released a few years ago. And if there's anything we've seen lately from another certain amount of files that were released, there's going to be redactions all over it. But it all started just days ago with two simple words from former President Barack Obama on a podcast. When asked during a rapid-fire question round, are aliens real? He gave a stunningly direct answer. They're real. He quickly added the caveat, but I haven't seen them, and they've not been kept in Area 51. He would later clarify his statement on social media, explaining that his comment was based on the statistical probability of life existing in our vast universe, and that he saw no evidence of extraterrestrial contact during his presidency. But the initial raw admission had already lit a fire. The two words, they're real, went viral. Speaking to reporters aboard Air Force One on February 19th, President Donald Trump didn't just comment on Obama's statement, he weaponized it. Trump accused his predecessor of being a big mistake, alleging that Obama had revealed classified information. Then came the bombshell. Trump suggested he might just have to get him out of trouble by declassifying everything. Later that evening, he made it official. In a post on his Truth Social platform, President Trump issued a directive that has the entire world holding its breath and seemingly distracted from everything else that's going on. He ordered the Secretary of Defense and other relevant agencies to begin the process of identifying and releasing government files related to alien and extraterrestrial life, unidentified aerial phenomena, and unidentified flying objects. UAPs and UFOs are just the same thing, they just interchanged words, but that's besides the point. But let that sink in. A presidential feud over a podcast comment has now triggered an official directive to potentially unveil the most protected secrets in modern history. Well, some of the most protected secrets. This is no longer a fringe topic, it's a matter of presidential record. But to understand the true gravity of what Trump threatened to declassify everything really means, we need to peel back the layers of secrecy that have been accumulating for over 80 years. We need to look at the foundational secrets he's talking about, the stories that the government has spent generations trying to bury. It began in the summer of 1947 in the quiet, dusty landscape of Roswell, New Mexico. The Roswell incident is the pinnacle of the modern UFO phenomenon for one simple reason. It's a story of admission, followed by a swift, baffling retraction. In July of 1947, something crashed in a desert near a ranch. The Roswell Army Airfield issued a press release that was unambiguous. The headline in the Roswell Daily Record blared, "RAAF captures flying saucer on ranch in Roswell region." For a brief, shining moment, the world was told that the military was in possession of a flying disc. The base intelligence officer, Major Jesse Marcel, was pictured with the debris. It seemed like a moment of incredible disclosure. Then, just as quickly, the story changed. Within 24 hours, military officials held a press conference, this time with a new explanation. The wreckage wasn't a flying saucer at all, it was simply a weather balloon. Major Marcel was ordered to pose for new photos, this time with the flimsy remnants of a balloon, a story that became the official government line for decades. The incident was scrubbed, dismissed as a mistake, and misidentification. The story of a captured flying disc became a footnote, a joke for those that wanted to believe in aliens. But the people who were there, the first-hand witnesses, never forgot. Decades later, as the original participants began to speak out in their old age, a different story emerged. Major Jesse Marcel himself, the man in the photographs, would go on record in 1978 stating that the military's weather balloon claim was a cover story and speculated the debris was from an alien. He described handling material that was like nothing he had ever seen, lightweight metallic I-beams with strange purplish hieroglyphic-like characters etched into them. He insisted until his death that what he was forced to display for the second set of photos was a substitute, a prop to sell a quick cover story. He claimed the weather balloon explanation was a complete fabrication and that the government was lying to us. Who would have thought? I have no fishing trips planned. His testimony was echoed by others. Walter Halt, the public relations officer who wrote the initial press release under the orders of the base commander, signed a deathbed affidavit to be opened only after his passing. In it, he swore that he not only saw the craft, but also bodies. He described a metallic egg-shaped object about 12 to 15 feet long, and the bodies of small, non-human beings with large heads. Even General Arthur Exxon, who was a lieutenant colonel at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base at the time, the very base where the wreckage was reportedly flown, stated in a later interview that he was aware the Roswell object was made of special materials, and that he believed the official story was a cover-up. For decades, the official explanation held firm. It was a weather balloon. Then in the 1990s, facing renewed public pressure, the Air Force changed its story again. It wasn't a standard weather balloon, they now admitted, but a top-secret high-altitude balloon from a program called Project Mogul, designed to detect Soviet nuclear bomb tests. This was meant to be the final word, explaining away the exotic materials witnesses described. Yet, this explanation fails to satisfy many researchers and witnesses. They argue that Project Mogul balloons were made of materials familiar to military personnel of the era, not indestructible metals and strange hieroglyphs. More importantly, it doesn't account for the sworn testimony of high-ranking officials about a craft and non-human bodies. Roswell is the blueprint for the alleged cover-up. It established a pattern, an extraordinary event, a brief and shocking admission, a swift and aggressive retraction, and a multi-generational effort to ridicule witnesses and contain the truth. The threat to declassify everything doesn't just mean releasing documents. It means potentially pulling the thread that could unravel the entire tapestry of denial that began in that New Mexico desert. It means we could finally see the original files, the real transport manifest from Roswell to Wright-Patterson, the unredacted memos, and the original photos Major Jesse Marcel said were taken before the cover-up even began, and that could be huge if these unredacted files actually come out. The single event created a chasm of distrust between the public and the government, and it's with that chasm that a new generation of whistleblowers has emerged, armed with claims that make the Roswell incident look like just the tip of a very, very deep iceberg. This brings us to the man at the heart of the modern disclosure movement, a man who has testified under oath before the United States Congress, David Grusch. To understand the sheer magnitude of what President Trump is threatening to release, we have to look beyond historical cases and listen to the people who claim to have been on the inside. No one embodies this more than David Grusch. He isn't a civilian enthusiast or a fringe theorist. He's a decorated former combat officer in the Air Force and a veteran of the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency and the National Reconnaissance Office. For years, he was an intelligence official at the very heart of the U.S. defense establishment. Between 2019 and 2021, Grusch served as the Reconnaissance Office's representative to the government's Unidentified Aerial Phenomenon Task Force. It was in this official capacity, he says, that he was tasked with identifying all secret programs related to UAPs. And what he found, according to his sworn testimony before Congress in July of 2023, was a bombshell that shakes the very foundation of the government. Grusch testified that he was informed in the course of his official duties of a multi-decade UAP crash retrieval and reverse engineering program. In plain English, he claims the United States have been recovering crashed UFOs for decades. He said these exotic origin vehicles that have either crashed or landed, and that the government is actively trying to figure out how they work and reverse engineer the technology for military advancements. But he went further. When asked under oath if the US government had recovered the pilots of these crafts, Grusch stated that biologics were recovered. He clarified this was the assessment of people with direct, first-hand knowledge of the program, people he had interviewed as part of his official duties. He claims to know the specific names, locations, and program details, all of which he has provided to the Intelligence Community Inspector General and to congressional committees in a classified setting. This isn't just one man's story. Grusch's claims have been backed by high-ranking officials, most notably Carl E. Nell, a recently retired Army colonel and aerospace executive who worked with Grusch on the UAP task force, has publicly stated that Grusch's assertions are fundamentally correct and that we are facing a reality of non-human intelligence. Grusch also testified about the immense secrecy and illegality surrounding these alleged programs. He claims these operations have been illegally hidden from congressional oversight. He told Congress that he knows of multiple colleagues who were physically injured by UAP activity and by individuals with the federal government. When asked directly by Congressman Tim Burchett if he had any knowledge of people being harmed or even killed to keep this secret, Grusch replied with a simple, chilling yes. He described facing very brutal retaliation for coming forward, which he characterized as administrative terrorism, designed to silence him and others. He told the committee he feared for his life. This is the core of the cover-up narrative, that the secret is so profound, so paradigm-shifting, that elements within the government have resorted to illegal and violent means to protect it. Who would have figured? The files Trump is threatening to release are the very files Grusch is talking about. They are the classified reports he has provided to Congress. They are the program names, the budgets hidden within department accounts, the corporate contractors allegedly working on reverse engineering projects, and the locations where this hardware and these biologics are supposedly stored. Releasing these files would be a constitutional crisis and a scientific revolution all rolled into one. It would validate Grusch's testimony and expose the decades of alleged crimes committed to maintain the secret. But Grusch, for all of his credibility, is part of a lineage. 35 years before he testified before Congress, another man went public with almost an identical story, a story so fantastic it was for a long time dismissed as delusion. That person was Bob Lazar. Long before David Grusch spoke to Congress before the Pentagon officially released Tic Tac videos, there was Bob Lazar. Lazar appeared in a special interview with Las Vegas investigative journalist George Knapp. His face silhouetted, his voice disguised. He told a story that would permanently etch Area 51 into the public consciousness and define UFO lore for an entire generation. Lazar claimed he was a physicist who had been hired to work at a top-secret facility called S4. located miles south of the main Area 51 base at Groom Lake near Papoose Lake. He said he was to reverse engineer the propulsion systems of one of the 9 captured alien spacecrafts held by the US government. His claims were incredibly specific and at the time sounded like pure science fiction. He described a sport model flying saucer that used a powerful anti-gravity reactor. This reactor was fueled by a then unknown super heavy stable isotope of an element with the atomic number 115. He claimed element 115, when bombarded with protons, created a gravitational wave that could be amplified and focused, allowing the craft to bend space-time and travel vast distances. Lazar also claimed to have read the briefing documents describing alien involvement in human affairs. His story was viral, and the government's reaction was swift and decisive. They erased him. When George Knapp tried to verify Lazar's credentials, he hit a wall. There were no records of Lazar attending MIT or Caltech, as he had claimed. Los Alamos National Laboratory, where Lazar said he had worked, denied he was ever employed there, though a 1982 lab phone book did list him as an employee of a contractor. Skeptics and ufologists alike have pointed these discrepancies as proof that he is a fraud, and yet, parts of Lazar's story have grown more compelling with time, not less. First, his description of how the crafts moved erratically, making sharp right-angle turns and accelerating instantaneously, was once considered absurd. Today, it sounds eerily similar to the flight characteristics described by the decorated Navy pilots who encountered the Tic Tac UAP in 2004. Second, his claim about element 115. In 1989, it was a hypothetical placeholder on the periodic table, but in 2003, a team of Russian and American scientists successfully synthesized a new element. That element was 115. They named it moscovium. Now, the isotopes of moscovium we can create are incredibly unstable, decaying in milliseconds, a far cry from the stable version Lazar described. But the fact that he pinpointed this specific, obscure element decades before any official discovery remains a point of intense fascination for all of his supporters. For over 30 years, Bob Lazar maintained the same story, never changing the core details, even as he has been subjected to immense ridicule and scrutiny. He claims the government intentionally erased his records to discredit him, making him appear as a charlatan. For decades, Lazar's story existed in a gray area. Too fantastic to prove, too consistent to completely dismiss. Then came David Grush. Suddenly, Lazar's claims of a covert crash retrieval and reverse engineering program didn't sound so isolated. Grush, an American intelligence official with impeccable credentials, was telling Congress under oath that such a program actually existed. He was describing the very framework Lazar had alleged was in operation decades earlier. A declassification of everything would be the final definitive verdict on Bob Lazar. Do records exist of an S4 facility at Papoose Lake? Is there a paper trail for a project involving 9 non-human origin vehicles? Was there a physicist named Bob Lazar whose records were deliberately scrubbed? These are the questions that have haunted this field for over 3 decades. Answering them would either expose Lazar as one of the greatest hoaxers in history, or vindicate him as the original courageous whistleblower. His story, once relegated to the fringe, now stands as a crucial historical precedent for the very secrets that may be about to come to light. And those secrets aren't just historical, they're still happening right now in our skies. The feud between Obama and Trump and the subsequent declassification order doesn't exist in a vacuum. It comes after years of slow, reluctant admissions from the United States government, forced by irrefutable evidence captured by its own military personnel. The most famous of these is the 2004 USS Nimitz Tic Tac incident. I'm sure we've all seen the video by now, but if you haven't, here it is. In November of 2004, the USS Nimitz Carrier Strike Group was conducting training exercises off the coast of San Diego. For about a week, the advanced Spy-1 radar on the nearby cruiser, the USS Princeton, had been detecting strange objects. These anomalous aerial vehicles, as the operators called them, were appearing out of nowhere at about 80,000 feet, dropping to 20,000 feet in less than a second, hovering and then shooting back out of the atmosphere. On November 14th, 2 FA-18 Super Hornets were sent to investigate. David Fravor, a graduate of the prestigious Top Gun Naval Flight School. His wingman was Lieutenant Commander Alex Dietrich. As they arrived at the location, they saw a disturbance in the otherwise calm ocean, as if a large object was submerged just below the surface. Hovering erratically above this disturbance was a smooth white oblong object with no wings, no rotors, and no visible propulsion system. It looked, in Fravor's words, like a tic-tac. Fravor decided to descend for a closer look, and as he spiraled down, the object began to mirror his movements, ascending to meet him. It was, he said, aware that they were there. When Fravor made an aggressive maneuver to cut the object off, it accelerated at a speed he described as unbelievable, disappearing in an instant. Less than a minute later, the USS Princeton reacquired the object on its radar 60 miles away. 4 people and their 2 weapons system officers had a clear daylight visual of this object for about 5 minutes. Later that day, another FA-18 was launched and managed to capture infrared footage of a similar object, which became the now famous Tic Tac video, officially released by the Pentagon in 2020. This incident is not an anecdote. It is a documented event witnessed by multiple highly credible military officers and tracked on some of the most advanced radar systems in the world. Commander Fravor testified before Congress in 2023, stating that the technology on display was well beyond the material science and the capabilities that we had at the time, that we currently have, or that we're going to have in the next 10 to 20 years. And it wasn't a one-off event. In 2014 and 2015, Navy pilots on the East Coast operating from the USS Theodore Roosevelt began encountering similar objects on a regular, almost daily basis. 2 other famous videos, Gimbal and Go Fast, were captured during this period. The Gimbal video shows an object rotating against the wind, a maneuver that baffled pilots, note in the audio. The Go Fast video shows an object skimming low over water at an incredible speed. These pilots, like Ryan Graves, who also testified before Congress, reported that these objects, sometimes described as dark cubes inside clear spheres, would fly between their jets in training exercises, creating a serious safety hazard. One pilot reported a near miss with one of these cubes just 10 miles off the coast of Virginia Beach. These encounters became so frequent that they eventually led to the creation of a secretive Pentagon program, the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, running from 2007 to 2012 with a budget of $22 million. This program was the first official government program in decades tasked with studying UFOs. Its existence was only revealed in 2017 when its former director resigned in protest over what he called excessive secrecy and a lack of action. Elizondo, along with the other insiders, were instrumental in getting the Tic Tac, Gimbal, and Go Fast videos declassified and released to the public. This slow drip of official information culminated in the establishment of the UAP Task Force and later the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, which is the Pentagon's current office for investigating these phenomena. The declassification promised by Trump could blow this slow control process wide open. It could mean the release of the full unedited sensor data from the Nimitz and Roosevelt incidents. Pilots have reported that the released clips are just snippets of much longer recordings. And what else is on those tapes? What do the full radar logs from the USS Princeton show about the object's descent from 80,000 feet? What are the findings of the classified reports produced by AATIP and the UAP Task Force? They're no longer just stories. They're no longer conspiracy theories. They're no longer fringe, out there, la fairy tale things. They're data points. They're official military encounters with objects that defy our known physics. Releasing these files would force a public reckoning with the reality that these phenomena are real, that they are tracked by our military, and that to this day, the government admits it doesn't know what they are. So we're covering a story that's unfolding in real time, a story that connects to decades of buried history and unprecedented presidential promises. The details are complex. The implications are staggering. If you believe this is a topic that deserves serious investigation and that government transparency on this issue is paramount, let me know in the comments. And if you enjoy this kind of deep dive on kind of conspiracy theories, weird mysteries, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of our updates as we continue to follow every twist and turn of this. But where does it leave us? We're witnessing an unprecedented moment where a political clash between 2 of the world's most powerful men have become the unlikely catalyst for potential disclosure. Obama's casual, statistically based comment, whether intended as a joke or a slip, provided the opening. Trump's reaction framing it as a leak of classified data and retaliating with a vow of total declassification has turned it wide open. And it's weird that this is happening just a couple weeks after something much bigger has happened. 2026 is just off to a crazy start. There's a lot of shit going on that we don't know about. There's a lot of shit being proven that we have known about for years, and things are just crazy. But hopefully this video was a little bit informative and can take your mind off of some of the things going on. And I guess we'll have to see. Maybe the aliens are real. Maybe they're coming now. We don't know. They might already be here. I might be an alien. You might be an alien. Bob Lazar might be an alien. I don't know. But until next time, stay spooky.